Now back to this, what is mine and what is yours, right? What is theirs, So let's this maybe apply here the different upayas, so it will be helpful. The best way to understand it, even if just to give it a shot, that there is nothing other than your own, everything is. So everything, whatever is being experienced, remember that others are never, we are never in terms of others are always in terms of ourselves. So others are as we are, or the world is as you see it. The world is as you see it, literally. So this subject-object dynamic is always here in place, intact. This subject-object dynamic. But we also know that subject recognizes an object only because it is an object of one's perception.
I feel that there are like two different topics in there. One is about refined sensory, perception, refined sensory perception, and how to learn to trust it also, like what I'm feeling, and to differentiate between what is true and what is my own projection. And connected to that also, and I don't know if it's even important, but I keep coming back in my mind to this question about what's mine and what's from the others. Like, what do I feel from myself and what comes at me? So in the meditation yesterday, I felt that there was so much flowing through me, and like also a lot of terror from what was flowing through me. But I only realized afterwards. I had the feeling kind of like there's so much thrown through, and my own feeling got lost until I got out of meditation. And so that was one part of the question. And also I feel sometimes I feel my body is doing kriyas that don't feel like myself throughout the day, like kind of like I'm catching them from somewhere. And I don't know if it's even important, or I just go in there and let it out, or if it's something where I should stay more with myself. So yeah, that's kind of the.
Okay, can you hold this one to and bring us in? If I forget about it, bring it in towards, because there are quite few. It's quite a layered, let's say, inquiry here. So, just want to first understand what do you mean by refinement of perception, or refined perception, as you have put it, so that I know what you mean by that before reflecting on this.
I have the feeling that a lot of information or emotional information comes through my ears, which is sometimes a lot or too much for me. I can feel a lot of emotion building up just by hearing voices in meditation or other talks, and my body just needs to move. And also intuition, or just I can't really, it's not really tangible yet. It's just like a kind of a sensory feeling that I cannot really grasp yet. Like, it's not a knowing yet that there's something, but an idea. And so it's really hard sometimes to tell, like, is it my perception or is it just like a story of the mind?
Yes, I understand. that is what you meant by refined perception. Okay, let's maybe maybe go with that sequence of how you have shared that. So this what you experiencing is not so much refinement of perception. We will speak about it in a moment. It's that heightened sensitivity. Heightened sensitivity. And in that heightened sensitivity, the usual filters that, let's say, when consciousness in the more sort of that placid, right, homeostatic, dormant, whatever, mundane consciousness, the filters are so intact that our skin is thicker, right? So it's like literally we don't feel beyond what we feel like if it's cold, hot, we certainly can distinguish when someone speaks to us with a certain degrees, and right, like we don't want to just suddenly start to discard the range of subtle perceptions that variety of people have, even if they are not going through some kind of phase when all this begins to get somehow under the impact of whatever that is heightened, right? We also know that some people simply have thicker skin, period. Others are more sensitive. And even then, some people are more sensitive to sound. Some people are more sensitive in the area of olfactory. Like myself, I'm very sensitive to olfactory. I am the one who is like, in the office, food is burning. No, nothing is burning that. It will be too late when you smell it, because I already smell it. Some people are more sensitive, visual, let's say, touch, just gives us the range. But then comes the phase when, because of that much higher pranic activity, let's say there is this unfoldment. We don't want to speculate and say like this is definitely Kundalini now very active. This is something else that we need to tread attentively here. And in addition to what we want to cover during this week, and I would like to keep revisiting this theme so as to clarify further with regard to this, what sometimes feels uncertain. Am I awakened? Or is my Kundalini awakened? Or just stirred? Or just agitated? Am I going through pre-awakening? Is my Kundalini has risen? To what level? At what level of the chakra? Is my Kundalini now reposing? And all the rest of it. So we're just giving an overall view. You and only you can now apply what feels applicable to you, right? So that heightened sensitivity is because filters are get receded. These filters that the so-called 4% of the spectrum normal human being perceives, and 96 is not available to human perception per se. All these rays that are X-rays, like infrared, all these waves are beyond the range of human perception. We know that. The scientists somehow narrowed it down and gave us that ratio, that there's only 4% of the full range of what is out there perceptible by normal human, let's say, body, mind, through the obviously activity of the senses, because that's how we perceive. These are the doorways and the windows. And these filters there, you see that, but I don't know if you remember that, but sometimes with the rise of the social media, kind of the departure from printed word more towards the digital format, there were huge exchange of information. In fact, early days of social media were quite interesting. There was a lot of, at least in my experience back in the days when the Facebook just came into existence, right, before the other quicker, there was some interesting information was shared. At least if your interests are algorithmically tailored. So you come across some of the things like, wow, well, that's, thank you. You know, definitely widens the scope of my understanding. But also there were these lamentations kind of voices, and they were expressed by some of the figures who by now entered the establishment of this whole movement, spiritual movement, New Age movement, who were like, you know, we only like, remember this scientist, self-made scientist, like he's a kind of DIY, homemade, homegrown scientist, Nassim Haram. Say it? Yes. Am I speaking the same person, right? He's a, yeah. Like he was dismissed by the establishment, right? Completely, but he was just very active. The Greg Barden also, you know, like earlier days. There was these voices that there's magnitude of stuff out there, and we only perceive this. You know, there's a magnitude of stuff there, and we only perceive this. You see, there's a reason for that. So before we venture, there's a reason why there are these filters. We don't want to perceive the stuff. We don't want to become cats and see in the dark, because cats are deprived of other things. They can't see colors. They can see in the dark, but they cannot see a rainbow. In other words, they cannot see colors then. Cats see world in black and white. So do we want to suddenly be opened to the, let's say, all this range of waves, sound, electromagnetic waves, radiation waves? We perceive them. We will not be able to function. We will be in a complete arrested state, perceiving it all at once. So these filters actually, so the birds is chirping, and I'm beautiful evening, beautiful ambience, lovely company. Everything has this, right? So, and then it's shared. Of course, for someone maybe less shared. If someone is right now not feeling very well, you know, tummy ache, or maybe someone feeling tired, sleepy, someone feeling maybe in love and deprived of being with the loved one, someone homesick or something. So they may not feel as, let's say, you and I feel like birds are chirping, so lovely, right? But there is this shared reality, and thank God for that. So because of that shared reality, there is a possibility for shared experiences. So heightened sensitivity belongs to the phase, and it is associated with the way our organs of perception are charged and the way they are supplied with the required amount of energy that prana is in charge. But now there is this greater movement, right? Not maybe all this movement is yet in perfectly aligned, orchestrated manner. So there are kind of like almost as if some doors, windows open in the house and it's a windy day. There's a lot of draft, right? It's lovely to have it when there's, let's say, I don't know, 12 kilometers per hour, 12 kilometers per hour. There's this, we call it breeze. So the windows are open, doors are open. But then when it's 25 kilometers per hour, let alone 35, the doors get slammed, windows get smashed. There's this draft. It's like that. In the body, prana now moves in a much faster way. It moves here, it moves there, perhaps in a more chaotic way. And this leads to this heightened sensitivity. Vata, now we're getting this again, acknowledgement. People in whom ether and air element already physiologically, constitutionally, in larger degree, already will feel much more, let's say, burdened by these experiences. Burdened, because that heightened sensitivity is not always pleasant, isn't it? It's like I can do without it. So, same could be said about not just what we perceive in terms of, let's say, that immediate emotional response to someone's voice, or some just sound, or something that is out there, maybe a certain quality of light, certain quality of resonance in the atmosphere, in the ambience. And every place has its own resonance to begin with. Structures, architectonic structures, because of the way they are built, already there's this resonance, different resonance. It's a different feeling when you come into the true clay house, clay straw house. You are feeling so grounded there. And when you come into the concrete building, it feels different. You come to stone house versus you coming to the glass house. Every structure has different vibration. So we become more acute to that as well. More acutely sensitive to all these phenomena. So on a practical level, what to do about it? Well, again, it goes back to the management of air and ether element in the body, where Vata is the chief of all this. Vata is known as the king of all the doshas. In Ayurvedic language, Vata is addressed as the king of the doshas because Vata rules. It's a mobility. It's a mobile element. So it's the first element to go out of balance, the first element to go back into balance. It's the easiest to balance, but on a chronic level, it could cause havoc with the physiology. And because also it rules nervous system. So this, at the therapeutic level, knowing that, right, something you need to be more aware of. So to comfort yourself, to be able to, like, for example, just now entering someone else's territory again, but I guess this is right to interlink. Sometimes just putting, have you heard that term nausea? Yeah? Yeah, so you know how it feels, right? It's just the brain functions better, right? Just, what is it? Like just putting a drop of oil in each nostril and suddenly it just feels better. Just like rubbing the soles of the feet and the feet with warm massage in the morning suddenly feels grounding. Something opens up. The heart opens up. And feels also grounding. These little things, all these little things that go a long way in terms of that management. This discomfort, that drafty, cold, put a hat on, that extra scarf, that shawl culture, right? These nomads, right? The Berbers, the clothes, the outfits, like so multifunctional. You can wrap yourself up. There's the wind constantly in these conditions, but sun as well. It's a multifunctional. I think kind of like really, really serves well here as a it can become immediate insulation, and then if it's hot, you can loosen it up. So simply being aware that certain things will make you feel more comfortable. Vata likes to feel insulated. Insulation is what makes it feel more grounded. So there is less propensity for all these movements, extra movements, just as the draft in the house, can just make it unpleasant. So we just go and shut at least one door, one window, so it doesn't have that current. Now, refinement of perception. This is not refinement of perception. This is heightened sensitivity. And this heightened sensitivity can really go a long way. It can really be causing a lot of not just discomfort, but when it then reaches the level which is, let's say, not exactly psychic level, but close to being open to people's not just feelings, but frequency of their thought, intentions, right? Then it can become a real burden. People, before they take a conscious decision to, let's say, become psychics, right? Psychics, either healers of all kind, where the psychic healing is taking place, or psychics per se, like foretelling something, telling something, right? Topic which requires very attentive understanding, because it's not desirable to enter this, because there is a pooling of karma always. But some people are so gifted, they cannot do anything about it. It's as if they are taken on a ride. So maybe there are some exceptions out of the rule where that is literally becomes their calling. But if we don't have that calling, we certainly not benefiting from that open field of that complete and utter connecting to that, which is all to do with this now level where we perceive it with an inner ear, as it were. And I went through this myself, so I am fully aware of how uncomfortable at times it feels, being suddenly given this information where you're not asking for. It's like more than just receiving unsolicited kind of a visitation. It's invasion of sorts. So particularly when the element of air, which is associated with the anahata, is activated, then that capacity for perception is always heightened in terms of the what sound carries here, because here at the level of that what it's represented by element, it is better at the higher level, because when it is now at the level of the Vishuddhi, then there is a kind of a different quality to it, because it's no longer infused with an emotional content. But when it's at the level of the heart, there's a lot of emotional content. And this is where it gets interesting, because it's still mixed with what now you said. Is it mine? Am I being, is it just, or it's others? Where do we draw the line? This is very interesting. But I kind of rushed ahead of myself. So let's just go back and complete this on the refinement of perception. So it's for the clarity's sake. So simply, if you hear me, for example, speaking of using that term or someone else in this work, refinement of perception is not the same as what we just spoke. Refinement of perception belongs to the tapping to the provenance where senses themselves gain their power. In other words, it's the stage in meditation, in unfoldment, where the withdrawal and the inner expansion is reaching the point of such refinement where you tap into the template of creation. This template of creation where all this so-called celestial perception begins to take place. This is a dim, secret, yogic process where this, for each allocated sense perception and let alone organ of perception, which is designed for the sake of the senses to be fully now provided with that what is met at the level of the objective experience. But these templates is where they get the blueprint or template. So in other words, there is no such thing as smell of orange or a rose or any perfume that is created. That's at the level of the screen. That's at the final level. But all this already, all the range of this, let's say if we speak about the sense, exists at a subtle level of creation. Likewise, everything exists, even form exists at the very subtle level of creation. Oh, we earlier spoke about pipilikas, so this is very fitting to mention. Pipilikas, ants, right? It's a tantric expression which is spoken with regard to subtle experience of sense of touch. It literally is spoken in terms of as if experiencing the crawling of ants on one's body. It's this tingling sensation, pipilika. And this pipilika, it's a subtle sense of sparsha, the sense of touch. And this is also belongs now to this celestial perception. So the vision of internal lights, sounds, scents, all this is perceived at the level of vibration, and depending on what is now need to be experienced in the sadhana, there are certain scents that begin to dominate. It's like almost you choosing now in the perfumery, in the rich perfumery of that olfactory, cosmic one. You begin to inhale what you want to inhale. Not that, I want this. No, it's like what is required now for your process. See? It may be a scent of lotus or a rose. With me it was rose. And all the gradations of roses, you see? Like, and a lot goes in terms of what this really means. Because then it's very difficult to physically match that sound, scent. So the dilemma begins which perfume to use now. You see? It's like, it's not an easy, so you go to the park and steal roses, that's what you do. Regent's Park has the best roses, so you steal them from the queen, right? Most kind of like appropriate, valeur de rose, kind of. Because you steal them already from the Garden of Heaven, so might as well take it from the queen. I'm just saying, not encouraging. And this also relates to this marvel of sounds. And then, of course, it's like, what kind of music can you hear when that phase unfolds? Very difficult to listen any music. So this is refinement of perception, celestial perception. It also heralds the maturity of sadhana. Because also it's really the possibility for extracting the subtlest in experience, any experience. Therefore, for that reason, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi equated it with God consciousness. And in that system of 7 states of consciousness, it's the 6th before the unity takes place. So the celestial perception, right, this, or refinement of perception, that's what it represents. It's not quite the same as extra sensitivity to variety of phenomena. It has nothing to do with the physical world anymore. It's to do with the templates, where the physical, the physicality of the world gains its everything. So now back to this, what is mine and what is yours, right? What is theirs, So let's this maybe apply here the different upayas, so it will be helpful. The best way to understand it, even if just to give it a shot, that there is nothing other than you, your own. Everything is. So everything, whatever is being experienced, remember that others are never, we are never in terms of others are always in terms of ourselves. So others are as we are, or the world is as you see it. The world is as you see it, literally. So this subject-object dynamic is always here in place, intact. This subject-object dynamic. But we also know that subject recognizes an object only because it is an object of one's perception. So in a movie, we watch all characters and the full story. We might choose to identify with the hero, maybe secretly admiring villain for being like, a badass, right? But we take side. But we are the ones who watch the full movie. So every character is being recognized in us. In the same way, in exactly the same way, in life, we only recognize ourselves. This is, of course, a very high, a very tall order. So this is why I suggest we apply this as upayas. So we first give this understanding. We always bring this reminder. At some, in some cases, it may just work wonders. In some cases, it might just create this immediate sense of acceptance, surrender to what is, brings sense of peace, serenity, because the argument is withdrawn, no? The energy beneath is withdrawn. So, but it's not going to work always. So we have to already be compassionate to, cannot apply this tallest order. So what is it then now? How do I deal with what is mine and what is coming from the environment? See? So this is, if that, what is spoken in terms of that unity of subject and object, or great intimacy, also another way of speaking about it, then the only honest way would be is to lean on the psychological, let's say, strength of what is already kind of maintained, where you drew the healthy boundaries. You see? In other words, you retrieve into your Ahamkara. You have no choice. You retrieve into your Ahamkara that safety. If you have already quite some understanding, hopefully, and I don't believe that you would, maybe when unaware, when unconscious, but you wouldn't act selfishly, consciously. When we act selfishly, we by large mostly act because we are unconscious, we're following some unconscious patterns. Compassionately speaking, we could say it's simply a great misunderstanding, a great sense of kind of falling victim to an error. When that error is removed, then we cannot act selfishly. And empathy becomes a natural state of affairs. Empathy is natural. Every time we kind of like baby cries for attention, we want to, our needs met first, this and that. All this is because we're driven by this whole set of unconscious patterns. How these patterns were generated? We may not have access to that. Not all of us. Not all of us have these gifts of psychic. And not all psychics, by the way, can apply it to themselves. That's the bizarre thing. The psyche may tell you what's going to happen to you in 10 years' time, what's going to happen to you next year, or give you at least, but they cannot do anything about their own life. It's somehow hidden. So these unconscious patterns, baby in a cot, crying for attention, the parents deaf to that, tired, fed up, drunk, on drugs, don't care. I'm busy, I'm, watching football, World Cup, and wife is like, whatever. So the baby is there crying for attention. And baby cries, mammals survive because they signal, no? So there has to be like, there's a lot of things that we still carry as mammals, have to be held enough times when we're babies. Held. Physically held. Because that is down to survival. Not held enough, immune system is not strong enough. In the first, at least 2 to 5 years of life, there's need to be a continued reassurance through a sense of touch, where the baby is held ideally by the mother. Ideally. See? We may not like this, like fathers will do too if the mothers are not around. But there has to be someone where the baby feels that connection through skin, through touch. See? We will retain that dependence for the rest of our life. But at least it's no longer a matter of life and death, but for babies is. Attention is likewise. When a baby mammal is in need, it signals by, like first, They book, like I'm looking here, there's no book here, but they write books about it. There are books. How to detect that. Apparently there are digital already devices that recognize whether the baby does a false signal or a true one. So when mother is in another room, maybe in the kitchen or doing her pampering, whatever, she can know whether the baby just mean business or just, being kind of like, there are different degrees of, first is just quiet, like then a bit more pronounced, quiet, okay? Nobody's coming, nobody's taking care of me. All right, so we need to do something. So, and then comes the scream. And then the scream is also accompanied by real hunger. So, crying baby is a syndrome. Crying baby cries for attention. Attention here is survival. So if attention is not met, then attention will come like, I did these doodles, look at it. Put it on a fridge, because if you don't, the baby will feel not encouraged. It will walk after you. Look what I drew. Pull mommy by the apron, by the trousers, Look what I did. Marvelous, darling. Aren't you gorgeous? Look at this. What is it? Let's look at it together. When these needs are met, childhood unfolds in supportive manner. We truly, truly bring out what already there. But if not, then strategies begin to be created. And the language of manipulation begins to get in. And we grow up And then we need to have the language of manipulation anyway, because that's also part of the biological survival mechanisms. We need to manipulate our environment somehow. There is a legitimate way of manipulating environment. When our needs are met, but when our needs are not met, we will begin to come up with strategies, varieties, various different strategies. And some of these strategies will be projected well into well into our adult life. And we can see that, particularly those of us who have studied psychology, even at the crush level, or simply intuitive, sensitive enough, lived long enough, have observed people acting in different situations. We notice that. We see that. We recognize that in ourselves. When we act out of genuine need or when we simply want attention. Because that attention is somehow gives us the sense of being seen. You see? Otherwise, we're not being seen. But that not being seen also in itself is because at some point we were not given enough of that loving, caring attention, recognition. The drawings were not, our doodles were not put in the fridge. For instance, in our house, we have fridge full of it's like not exactly exhibition, but it's like not curated by anyone. Sometimes I give a hand and the eldest, she said, Dad, let's leave that. I think we ought to replace this. Cool, let's do it, And the little one, she carries in, it's like just now, fresh from the press. There, it's like we have these magnetic things there, so just look like, like, all right. Yeah, let's keep it. Yeah, great, let's keep it. So this is where we really have to grow up. So if the highest upaya doesn't work, where do we begin to draw the lines? So draw the lines in the healthy boundaries of your Ahamkara, in the healthy boundaries of your individuality. Retrieve into that so you're not overexpanded. In solitude, in quality time. Very important, quality time. Whatever you do, there has to be quality to it. Even if it's a short, 10 minutes, but there's some quality to it. Quality. There's something which has some kind of form of appreciation. Something, what you like. See? So then that field is restored. And being invaded or being somehow like these projections, nobody said that we have to like everyone because we want to adhere to the high standards of what it means to be human being at the height of its evolution. No, it has to be natural, because what's the most important? It's the feeling that we have. What we feel is by far more important. We can act in alignment with a lot of cultural, let's say, expectations. We can be very well-mannered. Some people are much more well-mannered because they grow up in a certain way. They're honed. Their gestures, manners are fostered. See, they're well brought up, we say. They say, thank you, please, this, that. It rolls out of their tongue. There is this, and it's done often with gentle, non-invasive smile. But by far, what's most important is what we actually feel, because that's what really goes around and fills the universe and vibrations in everyone. So, of course, we cannot feel good equally about everything and everyone. On some days, we don't feel that great. On some days, we easily get ticked off So what do we do? What do we do? You see? You retrieve into that healthy boundaries of your Ahamkara. You retrieve into that. See? Soon as you feel the sun is out, soon as you feel the climate allows that, apply that highest mean. That whatever I perceive, and then witness that as well. Notice it. Notice it when you are actually in that sense, in that state, in that sense, in every way, in every respect. You feel that even what normally you would not like, right? I don't want to go into personal stuff. Like I'm with Eckhart. Let's not go there. But there are areas where I know exactly to be barometers of where I am. There are barometers. Sometimes it's a particular, let's say, so-and-so or something that gives me the indication where I am. You see? So ultimately, it's nothing but the world is as you see it. So that's the true definition of the state of affairs when it comes to anything that we perceive in others. Because the ability to perceive anything in others comes through the capacity of our perception, which is only subjective. It doesn't have objectivity. Perception cannot be objective. It's always subjective. But where that subjectivity gains its power, and where does it gains its, let's say, quality? You tell me.
I think I didn't really understand the question. Like, where does it
Well,
gain
everything
quality?
we experience it's because the primacy of I amness. Everything is experienced subjectively. We may agree on something and then we call it, well, that's the objective, let's say, resolution, because you and I see in the same way. But every experience and every perception, sensory, extrasensory, and transcendental, is nothing other than subjective. This is what we call pure subjectivity, I amness. So that's the answer with regard to what portion, what degree of whether this is you or there are some projections. See? But as I said, if we only kind of demand of ourselves or set that level that high, then we'll be tiptoeing and it's not easy to walk. There has to be this naturalness about the way we are. So we can't really trick consciousness here, right? We cannot outsmart consciousness either, because it is consciousness that illumines the quality of our experiences, the quality of our perception. Everything is illumined by the power of our subjectivity. And it will become clearer, accompanied by experiences, repeated experiences, tapping into that. You become clearer and clearer, and eventually, because it's your nature, because it's your second nature, as the language goes, then it will feel very natural. Because it does feel natural to simply be. The most natural thing is a state of being. Nothing can be added to it. Nothing can be subtracted from it. And natural. So, therefore, that what is natural doesn't have to feel extraordinary. It will feel very, very ordinary. Even if it, at some point, feels as unreachable and extraordinary. And there was something else that you were meant to remind me.
Yeah, it was about the Kriyas that
yes, the Kriyas that are throughout the like throughout the day, right?
Throughout the day, and that I experience here Kriyas that are completely not typical for my feeling of my energy. So I sometimes have the feeling like they're coming to me, like, yeah, also again probably the same thing, like what is mine and what is not mine, what is like and the question like I'm trying to let them flow and to just like, yeah, but I'm not really sure if it's sometimes my focus that is not enough inside and with me, that is kind of scattered around, and the focus on that, and this is why the kriyas go there. And if I should tend more to the focus and
kriyas
anchor
go
myself in
like I know this is maybe the way of the language, but when you say kriyas go there, what do you mean by that? Kriyas go there, go where? Well, you just said when the kriyas go there.
I don't really know what I said.
I don't know what it's maybe I misheard, but it's just sounded that way. So, in other words, kriyas throughout and daily activities just come up, and you're not sure what to do with it.
Yeah, it's like these these subtle impulses that like the energy wants to flow in certain ways, and sometimes I have the feeling that I'm kind of moving synchronic with the feelings of someone else, and like kind of that my body acts in the feeling of or in the field of someone else, and I'm not really sure if I should keep my focus with myself more. So, or if I should just go in there and let it unfold.
So again, let go there and let it unfold. Go where?
Like, let the movement flow through my body.
Right.
Or
because
or
that
take my
movement
focus back to myself.
so that movement feels as if, let's say, right, as if in response to some kind of situation, some kind of maybe a person, some event. Is this what you mean?
Not always. Like, it can also be like when I'm alone and like just walking around here, and just feels completely different to what my energy and what my kriyas usually feel like. It's really subtle, and I cannot really grasp
So you
it.
feel as if, is it my kriya or someone else's kriya? Is this what you're alluding to?
Yeah, I'm going round in circles with that. But like what I'm really, I think what I'm asking is there anything I should do or just be with it? Like, should I try to focus more on myself? And because sometimes I have the feeling this is when my attention is like all out, and I'm not really sure if this is the right way. So I'm asking, how should I? Is there something I should do? Like try to go back to focus, go somewhere where I can retreat, for example, as you said, or just go with the flow, move with whatever wants to unfold.
Okay, I think I got it now. It's very simple. It's rather simple. So, if you are not engaged in any activity where a degree of focal point is required, where your attention is required, like you're baking something, you're working with some machinery, instruments, tools, driving, like anything that, taking care of something where your attention is focused, funneled, channeled, right? But when you are, let's say, just relaxing simply, given to this downtime, right? Like kind of when it's dispersed, it's not on anything in particular. So if Kriya comes in this at that moment, just go with the flow. There's no need to kind of like, oh, do I keep attention? If you are somewhere where it's not going to cause you discomfort, where, let's say, in public transport, or, somewhere where, nature of the Kriya can be dramatic, right? But back in the days, we used to laugh at it, and it's like you have to be able to have range of strategies to immediately conceal it, And it could be from, like, let's say, hand move like that, and it's like flies are always, it's everywhere, flies. Like your body does twitched, and it's like, oh, oh, sorry, no, like, oh, like, why? No, we talked about it, right? How to conceal the Kriyas in public, or your body just kind of move like that, and it's like, oh, yeah, yeah, and we'll go. Well, so everyone is happy as well. So it's kind of like you add cheer to the environment. What I'm saying is that if naturally something comes, just environment, surrounding situation affords it, go with the flow. Never hold back Kriyas. Body needs to vibrate. Body needs to shake it off. It shakes it off. It could take a while. It will take a lifetime. And some Kriyas will never leave, never stop. They become subtler. Some of them will change language. But this is part of the way this is. Part of the way this is. See? So you may spend, like, if depends on line of your work and everything. If you are actually here, both examples are relevant. If you, let's say, have you spend a lot of time in one place, sitting in front of the screen, let's say, or something which requires this kind of a more contracted bodily movements, posture, then something will accumulate in the body which really wants to speak. The opposite of that is also true if you run around all day and really physically kind of like exhaust yourself. Body will also try to shake that tiredness off as well. So the two different, almost opposite examples. Something which is sedentary, something which, by virtue of being, not given to much activity, much motion, the body wants to vibrate. And running around everywhere and everything, it's just like you lie down, you can't even sit down to meditate, and your body starts to now shaking off that tiredness. So this is why when this phase comes, there have to be this regularity of sittings, because then the Kriyas will be much more, I would say, more prompt to, the body vibrates. Given the chance, you will actually feel when the time of meditation comes, it's almost like you already feel like in that state when you want to shake things off. You see?
Yeah, I do know these states. So I just treat all the Kriyas that do not feel like they're coming from my own system, just like usual Kriyas. Is that what you're saying?
Not to treat again, so just
so
I
like I had a lot of Kriyas in the last 2.5 years, and I think I kind of found my ways to deal with them. I just was not sure if it's the same if I have the feeling that I'm working something out of from another person. So you say it's just like basically the same, go with the flow if I can, and if I'm in a concentrated environment where I cannot let it go, let it flow.
Just again, you're speaking about other person. So because I want to have this very clear, is there a feeling that you feel somehow that some of the Kriyas perhaps some of the Kriyas that you're experiencing might be coming because you are in contact with some people. Because I wanted to know clearly if that's what you're trying to say. Okay. So, and you want to know whether that is possible, whether that is true?
Both. Like, I basically wanted to know if there is something, like, where's my blind spot? Am I missing something? How to deal with this? Like, is it because my attention is not where it should be?
Okay.
Or
So
is it...
I'm glad
yeah.
that we're getting to that. I'm glad because I wasn't sure, and you kind of were not, you were yourself almost like hesitant whether they. So, yes, of course it's possible, depending on the nature of your relationship with these people or proximity. You see? One or the other. We can process family karmas. So, in other words, nobody does spiritual work. We are the only person in the family. But families are interconnected. Everything is interconnected here. So, a single person begins to expand in their consciousness, and let's say reaches a point where this activation of pranic field, and let's say there is like activation of kundalini. In other words, there is some spiritual work intact, unmistakably. If this is the only person in the family, that there is guaranteed there will be some kind of given on our plate to deal with. You see? So there will be some possibility, particularly if you situate it and live with family members. This is proverbial. This is why certain phases of sadhana requires quarantine-like situational setup sometimes. Have you heard of that? Of course, it's like ashramic phase. It's like you are where everyone is at least the birds of feather gathered together, right? Flock together. Not to the same degree, but proximity, relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, friends. If there is a lot of time spent, and you are this walking open field, energetically open field, and this, let's say, connections that are with people who do not do any work on themselves, like zero work, right? There are some people who simply don't think that they need to do anything. They either feel that this is a waste of time or it's just like some side activity, right? Or whatever. The fact is, if you are spending some time in the company of these people, that the likelihood that some of the Kriyas will be because your field is opened and certain stresses naturally go through your system. You become this pole where the lightning is earthed. You understand that metaphor?
I think this is exactly what I am talking about. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is how it feels like. I'm magnetizing this kind of, yeah.
Well,
Right.
yeah, because it's not because you are doing that. It's how it works. It's simply like, okay, it can be processed here. I can't be processed here. It will be processed here because there's a great activity. The field is greater here. See? So in the containers like this, we process a lot of stuff, which could be spoken of in terms of not pertinent to you and I. It's collective. It's what Earth accumulated, environment. Let's say this is a newly built structure, so there's very little of that, right? So it's good for spiritual practice, and people come here, even if they don't do exactly the same work. At least they stretch on the floor, do some sun salutations, roly-poly, and they do something which at least aligns them. Maybe a little bit of meditation, chanting, dancing, maybe. But imagine if we are sitting in somewhere where there was a butcher house or some kind of like God knows what, ex-prison or something, then of course we will have to work it out. We'll have to do some work to purify this house, this building, this area. So yes, all this is intact. So if this somehow clearer for you, also I trust you understand how to go about it, right? I trust you understand that you need to also know your capacities. If it's someone very close to you, like empathy here. But we don't do this at the level of some meretricious act, like, because I'm now going through this, so I'm going to go and just accumulate all that stuff from all the people I love. This may not work very well. And someone very close to you, you may feel that's your job to do it. I don't know, sibling, sister, brother, something who is on a slippery path, and you feel that your presence simply can help. Then, of course, I'm not going to talk you out of it. But if it's on a casual level somewhere, right, and causes you some tiredness, distress, depletion of energy, then needs to be addressed. Is that clear? Because this is important, you see? So that you have to manage your energies.
Thank you.
You're welcome.